shot from the waist up, or can you see everything?
We're live now, people. We are rolling.
We are rolling.
So that'd be the first thing people see is back your legs being crossed.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode of what we're calling 9 Questions, where the library staff brings in a Flagler College celebrity and asks that person 9 questions. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better person to have as our first guest than Mike Butler.
Well,
So
thank
Mike,
you. When you said Flagler College celebrity, I thought they couldn't make it, so you came to me instead.
Yeah, we had about 4 or 5 people to turn us down before we got to you. But I'd find it hard to believe there's anybody who doesn't know who Mike is on campus. But Mike is one of our most beloved professors, teaches history, expert on civil rights history, Vietnam. We study abroad every semester, every summer.
You know, and conveniently enough, I
Published author.
happen to have a book here. I don't know if this will show up on there.
Ooh,
but
it looks like it's well used.
it's been well used,
I think
checked
you need
out.
to buy another copy of that for the stacks.
Definitely checked out a number of times.
Oh,
I can
good.
clearly
Good.
see that. But Beyond Integration, the Black Freedom Struggle in Escambia County, Florida, 1960 to 1980.
Award-winning
Award-winning.
Beyond Integration.
And I just want to point out something in the book that meant a lot to Blake and I when you dedicated the book to Blake and Brian.
Oh,
People
really
may not
appreciate
know
that.
You got that?
Yeah.
Good.
We
We
appreciate
helped out
that.
a lot with that.
Yeah, you did.
You would have
Yeah,
gotten it
did.
done without us.
Could not have finished.
Well, are you ready to play 9 questions with us?
I don't think it matters.
All right. We're here. Okay, I'm going to start us off here. I got a softball question to get us started here. So, Mike, what's your favorite class that you teach here at Flagler College?
All of them. Next.
Wow.
No, I can't. That's like asking me to pick which U2 album's my favorite, right? That's tough.
To pencil that.
For different reasons, I would say different courses. In all honesty, I like teaching the intro classes because it gives me an opportunity to expose freshmen who may hate history, expose them to what history at the college level should be. History, most people think, is about dead presidents, Supreme Court cases, and laws. And it's much more than just that. It's dynamic, it's ever-changing, it influences where we are today. So for those reasons, I like the intro classes a lot. I love teaching the civil rights class. I love teaching Southern cultural history, which I'm teaching this semester. I love teaching the Vietnam War. I love the rock and roll history class because so many people go into that class thinking, oh, we're just going to listen to the music. Well, it's much more than that. It's kind of like a gateway class to other harder history classes,
I was gonna say
right?
gateway to something else.
I had to pause on that, Blake. I knew you would, but I had to go with a metaphor that you would
Understand.
accept and understand.
Okay.
So yeah, I like that class because understanding Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Elvis, and their music can be trivia if you don't understand the historical context. So I've said all of that to say that I'm really lucky to do what I do because I learn just as much as my students do every time I teach a certain class.
Good answer.
That's
Yeah.
a good solid
Fantastic
right out
answer.
of the gate.
Thanks.
Well, speaking of, you brought up the rock and roll class, and I was trying to remember what one of our first conversations was about, but I'm almost sure it was about music.
I'm pretty sure it was.
And I think it was after we ordered some Leonard Skinner DVDs for you.
Yeah.
So, because of that, I was telling you when I was in middle school or high school that I burned through at least probably 2 copies of Gold and Platinum on cassette.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm aging myself a little bit, that's all right. And you said, well, if you really want to hear a song by them, have you ever heard Was I Right or Wrong?
Oh man, have I ever heard that song? Yeah.
So, because I didn't know you very well, I just kind of wanted to impress you. So I probably said yes, but truth is I've never heard that song.
I saw right through
Yeah,
it.
yep.
Yeah.
And so once you told me that, I went on Apple Music, dialed it up, and I thought, I can see the appeal of this song. But what I'm curious about is what makes that particular song so meaningful to you.
I wrote my thesis on Southern rock, and the thesis was basically that Southern rock was a way that white males in the post-civil rights South reconstructed an identity. And I thought one of the most important things about that song was the need for paternal validation, right? It's my dad wanted me to do this. I basically said no. I went off, bought a guitar, played, got famous, and now after his father died, because he was out trying to prove him wrong,
right.
The question is, was I right or wrong? So it goes into a lot of themes about the relationship that men in the South historically have had with their relatives, and the sense of family obligation versus personal independence,
right.
And how it kind of collided. Now that's a really deep answer, but it's got
it's
got a good guitar riff in it too.
It does. I like that. Very slow at the beginning.
And then when he's trying to prove himself to his dad, Ronnie Van Zant says, "Take a listen, Papa." And they go into the hardcore guitar riff. So I just thought that was an interesting song. And not one that you would associate with Skinner, because it's much more deep than just...
That's what would be known as a deep cut.
That's
Am
a
I
deep
right
cut.
about that?
Yeah, that very well done. You've got the lingo.
Okay, and I don't even have this on my sheet, but what album did that come off of?
Was I right or wrong? That actually came off of their box set. It was not released on an album.
Very good. Because I tried to find that last night. I was looking for... Didn't they have like Nothing Fancy and...
Nothing Fancy.
Working for MCA.
Working for MCA. Street Survivors. Second Helping.
Yeah.
And Pronounced Leonard Skinner was the first.
The first one.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I think I'm being tested. I think you're trying to...
No.
You trying to call out my bona fides.
I thought maybe it was on an album that I...
No, it was a deep cut, because it was on the Leonard Skinner box set of the same name, which I think our library possesses.
I hope so. If we don't, we have to dial that up.
That's right.
Well, this has got real deep real quickly. I wasn't expecting this to happen. So we're going to bring things, we're going to go a little bit lighter here. Mike, what's your personal favorite Ole Miss game that you have ever watched?
Unfortunately, favorite is probably not the word I would use. Okay, so there are two categories. There are favorite because of the outcome, and memorable because of the pain they caused. The 7 overtime loss to Arkansas was bad. Anytime Ole Miss plays Arkansas in Oxford, it's bad.
Oh.
The Alabama tip 6, that was my favorite.
Okay.
What year was that?
That was my favorite. It was before Hookergate. So Hugh Freeze, if you're listening, burn her phone, man. What are you doing? It was the time before last we were in Tuscaloosa, so it was 3 years ago, and it was the second time in a row that Ole Miss beat Alabama. The first time in Oxford, the Gumps thought it was a fluke, and we went into T-Town and took another one from them. And it was the miraculous play that will go down in Ole Miss lore as the tip 6.
The tip 6.
Yes, okay. Yes, where the ball bounced off of a player's head right into the hands of the receiver.
I actually remember.
Strolled into the end zone. And it was after that Nick Saban got on the phone with the NCAA, and the rest is unfortunate history.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, too bad.
No, you're not.
I know what it's like.
Well, we're going to stay with sports for question 4. We know you're a sports guy.
I am a sports guy.
All right. We can all agree, I think the three of us can all agree, that Hulk Hogan was known for the atomic leg drop.
And
That's
hulking
the
up.
finishing move.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And then Ric Flair, what was his finishing move?
No, it was the figure 4.
Okay, correct. I've got that right on my sheet. But in your opinion, what is the best finishing move in professional wrestling history?
Ooh, the best finishing move in pro wrestling history. Oh, now we're going deep. This is some highbrow academic stuff here. Okay, best finishing move in pro wrestling history. I really like anything that AJ Styles does. I do like the simplicity of the mandible claw from Mick Foley, Mankind, Three Faces of Foley. I like the mandible claw because in physics,
Is that was the sock?
It evolved into Mr. Sacco.
Okay.
But at first,
Oh,
when
Mr.
he was
Sacco.
Mankind, the mandible claw, physiologically, if it's applied right, you can't bite the fingers. And it looks like, well, why doesn't the dude just bite his fingers? And
Right.
the physics of it is you can't. Okay, so there's that. there's that.
Sounds like you know about a lot about this. Have you had the mandible claw applied to you?
No, but I have applied the mandible claw in contract negotiations with certain Flagler administrators.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was, and they tapped out fast. So I'm still here, and they know that I'll slap it on at the first sign of contractual disagreement. But man, I was exposed to wrestling when I was a wee little Dr. Butler, when I was like a 5-year-old Dr. Butler. And it was so clear that there is good and evil in the world.
Right through that, right?
Right through that, man. And it's easy to identify, and sometimes evil wins, but it's only temporary.
And even though this isn't on here, I would say, in Blake and I's conversations with you, we must have talked 2 or 3 hours. If you put all the time together that we've talked about professional wrestling.
Probably. The Macho Man's flying elbow.
Oh, so now, you're going to give us 2 answers.
The mandible claw is more recent, okay? That's your attitude era finisher, folks. The silliest is the people's elbow, but we won't get into that.
Right.
Macho Man's elbow drop off the top rope.
That always put him out.
That was it. There's no kicking out of the flying
Miss
elbow.
Elizabeth in the corner watching.
Yeah, until Hulk Hogan got involved.
Oh, that's right.
The mega powers. Don't get me started.
All right, we're going to go back to music here. This is a toss-up for you for the man who teaches history of rock and roll. So whatever answer you give, that's going to be kind of the law on this one.
Kind of like
Black Sabbath or Metallica?
Black Sabbath.
Good choice.
All right.
That's the right answer.
No need to say anything.
No need to say anything else.
Right. Okay, who is the one person? We're going to go back to history.
Okay.
We hear that's your area.
Yeah, I've heard.
Who is the one person in history that you'd like to share a meal with?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I've actually thought about that one before.
That's why I came up with it.
That's a good one. That's a good one. The one person in history.
Should tell you we've got a timer.
You've got a timer on it? The answer, the highbrow, highfalutin, really deep philosophical answer is always something like Jesus Christ or Muhammad or the Buddha. And I think a group dinner with people like that, with great theologians, thinkers, Martin Luther King, people like Gandhi, people like Jesus, Buddha, but having the one crazy person from history there that they all try to talk to as if he's rational, like Hitler. I think having Hitler at a dinner party with the great thinkers, theologians, peaceful people would just be fascinating. And I've wondered, so because he's so crazy, would all the other philosophers lose their patience and start talking about him behind his back and basically write him off as a lost cause? Or would they actually try to reason with someone who is so obviously unstable?
In the right direction?
Yeah. So for me, it's more of a group effort thing. It's an intervention for someone who is absolutely bat bleep crazy. And I just think that would be fascinating.
It would.
And Bono.
And Bono there too?
Yeah, I would love to have Bono there.
Yeah.
That's the one person today.
It'd fit more in with the other side.
Well, that's a matter of conjecture, my friend. I would disagree with that. I think Bono would be rational, and I think that, I would hope. But yeah, one-on-one, one of the coolest experiences I've ever had is having dinner with Andrew Young, interviewing him on stage. And for me, that was one of the coolest professional things I've ever done. And for me, that has to be the closest thing to having dinner with one of the great civil rights minds like Dr. King or Malcolm X. That might be the answer.
Yeah. You can
Having
say that,
dinner. Okay, so just erase everything I just said. Although I do like the Crazy Train dinner with Gandhi trying to get in between Buddha and Hitler. But I do like the idea of, before his death, 1965, having a dinner with both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X simultaneously. I think that would be so cool.
Another good answer from you.
Yeah.
I know, this isn't disappointing.
Yeah, no, not at all. Mike, what's one place you've never been for a study abroad that you would like to go? What would be the dream study abroad, but a place that you've never taken a group of students?
Man, that's tough because I really do think I get to conduct my dream study abroads. I really do. I mean, I just talked to a group of students about the Fall of Nazi Germany tour that I lead. coming this summer in 2019. And I get excited every time I get to do something like that because it is living a dream that I never thought I would realize. I mean, I never, you know, my whole childhood, I never got out of, I mean, the end of the world was Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Right.
So the fact that I get to do this for a living and learn is really cool. I think maybe study abroad, something that I've never done, going to Africa and tracing some of the slave trade routes would be cool. That would be something that I would love to do. That would be one. I would love to put together a domestic study away, study abroad, where we take the civil rights, the National Civil Rights Trail, and we start in St. Augustine. I think that would be really cool to hit places like Little Rock, Birmingham, Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, Orangeburg, South Carolina. That would be really cool. In terms of a place that's on my bucket list that I've never been, maybe future donors would like to take their favorite ex-history professor, it would be Thailand. I want to go to Thailand bad. Southeast Asia is just, to me, super cool. So Cambodia, Thailand would be a historic and cultural bucket place trip.
So there's about 3 places there that 3 major trips.
Yeah. See, we ask a question just expecting one answer, and we get even more than that.
Bravo.
Yeah.
To that.
Bravo to
knocking it out of the
that.
park.
I am not. That is why I'm awesome.
I've been trying to get Bravo into this conversation. All right, my turn.
Your turn.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, Blake's questions are very intellectual. You know, mine maybe not so much.
Ole Miss football is quite intellectual. That's right.
All right, two-part. Two-part question. I've modified this question a little bit with the recent passing of maybe at least 2 people in this room's hero, Burt Reynolds. What is your favorite Burt Reynolds movie of all time?
Oh, Deliverance.
Wow, quick.
Deliverance. Yeah.
I'm surprised
Deliverance.
Smokey didn't make it
Smokey was actually one of the first movies that I ever watched on Showtime. Smokey and the Bandit. I remember they played Smokey and the Bandit all the time.
All the time. How old were you? About 11 or so?
Yeah, I was. It was last year when I finally could afford Showtime, as a result of the Man Club that I applied.
Yeah.
So no, it was the early '80s, But I would go with Deliverance because of the cultural and historic representation of the deep South at the time. Perpetuated a lot of stereotypes and Ned Beatty, man.
There's a lot of jokes we can make, but I don't think
none are appropriate for this interview. No, we'll make those off.
One thing I read about just some interview that he gave shortly before his death, he said that was the one movie that he really did act in.
Yes, exactly. He said that was the movie that kind of gave him his legitimate push to more roles. So Deliverance would be the first for historical reasons, for cultural reasons. But I mean, in terms of acting, Boogie Nights was great.
Oh yeah.
He was actually scheduled. Y'all probably know this, but he was scheduled to be in Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he was going to play.
I read that.
He was going to play the owner of the land that the Manson family lived on.
Wow.
Before they went, so that would have been interesting. So, it was good to see later in life Reynolds kind of have a personal rebirth,
resurgence.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Now this doesn't have to be a Burt Reynolds movie, but what's your favorite movie quote, or close to your favorite?
Can't say it because it's from Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, okay.
That's probably my favorite movie of all time, if that's on anyone's list.
No.
But
my favorite war movie, by the way, possibly my favorite movie ever.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
Full Metal Jacket's intriguing because people who are hardcore pro-military, pro-war, pro-Vietnam love it, and people who are hardcore anti-military, anti-violence, they also love it too. And that's how Kubrick wanted it. So this idea of hyper-masculine Pyle turns into animal mother, it's really, really deep. But people across the political spectrum love that movie. And of course, because of Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, it's one of the most quotable films ever.
One of the greatest acting performances too. And he, being a former drill sergeant, was able to do it.
That's why it was so great. I don't think it was acting. I think it was him living out the role he played as a drill sergeant for so many years. R. Lee Ermey was not supposed to have that role initially. He was actually a consultant.
Wow.
And the person who was going to be the drill sergeant kept messing up. And he basically said, well, let me show you how to do it. And Kubrick says,
get him in there.
You're there.
Yeah.
So,
Good
kind of
call.
interesting. Good call. That's right.
All right, we got
This is it.
one final. This is the last
That's the
question.
end.
Yeah, one more. What's your next book going to be now?
That's a good question. That's one that I've been asked a lot. And I have a few different...
What did I tell you?
Yeah.
Should I answer it?
No.
No, I think that's. I got to run here.
Wrap down the show. That's what he's saying.
Wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay. Next book. I have a few different projects in mind. There are a couple of things. Civil rights movement, race relations in Florida as a whole. There's no one monograph on it. I think that would be fascinating. Number 2, a historical overview of rock and roll history. There aren't many good ones out there. There are some, but not many. The one that I'm leaning to most heavily, though, is an examination of racial tensions among American troops who were stationed in Vietnam during the war.
Yeah, I got to run.
All right. You want to end
The
it?
FCC is calling.
Yeah, they are.
We're just going to plug your
We're in
Twitter
trouble.
feed for you before we end things. So if you're not following Mike on Twitter, there's where you can get him.
Right there.
All right.
Perfect.
God bless you if you made it this far, everybody.
21 minutes.
Come for the snark, stay for the intelligence.
Mike, thank you.
Hey man,
Sorry
that was
I have
fun.
to-
No, that's cool. That's cool. That was fun.